Well, back to what's really at stake here. It would be like the dishwasher knowing how much the manager makes, or worse, what everyone else in the restaurant makes. And he just prints it out before he punches out. Think it can't happen? Well, former McDonald's USA CEO Ed Rensi says sharing sometimes very personal employee data could be more common than you know. Ed, surely you policed who knew what about whom in your organization, though. How did you do that, and who did you entrust with that?
Well, you know, in all organizations, you have intellectual property that has to be protected. And one of the most important things to protect is the privacy of the individual, the employee. So we had very secure systems that only the highest ranking people in our human resource departments could know about salaries, bonuses, performance reviews, and things of that nature. But this hardly is in the scale of national security. But we got to be realistic about this stuff. We want mature, well-schooled, well-vetted people managing intellectual property in this country, including our own privacy. And I think what's happened is that the largeness of the government, the entrenched federal workers who have nobody to hold them accountable, who can just go from job to job to job, no matter how badly they do or how many mistakes they make, is the real issue. The size of government has gotten out of control, and they no longer are strategic. They're micromanagers of details. And boy, when you do that, you're going to lose control inevitably.
You know, Ed, I'm just surprised we don't see more information leaked, though. And back to your corporate hat, if I could. A lot of people see data that they might or might not seize on and share or spill or leak because most people are very honorable. They don't do that. But in the course of like approving a promotion or a raise or a reprimand, there are in many organizations many eyes that see that along the way. Now, true to the good decency of most folks, they don't blurb that out. But the potential is that they could. And when government gets unwieldy and big, there's more of that because just the percentage rule of thumb means there are more people who could blurt it out.
Yeah, you always run the risk of a rogue in any organization. I'm sure that there have been people. We protected our computer center very carefully to who had access, passwords. We tracked it. We had a security department that was responsible for our computer security. So we were pretty tight about that thing. But you can always have a rogue anywhere that could do all kinds of damage before you could catch them.
Yeah, but how would you police that? Someone who says that Ed is paying all his store managers, a hypothetical, less on the East Coast than he's paying them on the West Coast. And someone is aware of that in your operations and conveys that to those on the West Coast because he feels maybe like this guy, a great indignation is afoot.
Well, you know, that's interesting because one of the ways to avoid that is transparency. If you're foolish enough to not have equal pay for your employees, you deserve to get busted. And I think that it really is, as long as corporations and government are behaving properly in the rules of business or in the rules of government, the Constitution, if you behave properly, the idea that a rogue could take information and do damage is diminished dramatically. It's only when we cross the line as a government.
If the rogue thinks, though, in this case, he found out evidence of collecting phone records of millions of Americans and God knows what else, because I think there's a lot more coming out. And he's offended by it. Now, there might be perfectly valid reasons for it, but he feels an obligation to leak that out. Good or bad?
Well, I think it's bad if he feels like he could leak it out because there's one fundamental issue here. Did he not have enough confidence in his boss to go there and say, look, I think there's a problem? And how did the boss respond?
Maybe he didn't. Maybe he just figured this is beyond the pale. I got to get this out because this is weird.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I don't think this young man is a hero. Had he stayed here and faced the medicine, I would have a different opinion. But he ran because he knew what he did was wrong. But he had bosses. He should have gone to them and said, this is wrong. I have an inherent disbelief in this. And if nothing else, he could have called his congressman or his senator and said, hey, I want to discuss this with you. Why not keep it in the channel of security?
All right. That's a very good point. Ed Rensi on Ed Snowden and whether he is a hero or just a hack. Ed, thank you very much. All right, there is some good news.